What's going on, Sunbelt fans? Welcome to the Week 4 wrap-up. What a week it was. My worst week of predicting games as I went 3-6 overall. We kind of already jumped into the Coastal Carolina-Georgia State game since that was Thursday, and the preview came out on Friday, so we kind of recapped that one already. We'll skip over that. Just in case you didn't listen to that one, Georgia State went down again, 24, and then Coastal had 41 to take that one pretty easily in the end. So we'll start off with the first game of the week as far as Saturday is concerned. James Madison and App State. What a game this was. I mean, it was pretty much a shootout as I predicted on the final score. However, it was not the shootout as I expected to see it live. I thought each team would just battle back and forth, 7-7, 10-7, 17-7, 17-10, that type of a shootout, just a lot of scoring back and forth. Well, it didn't happen that way. Somehow App State scored 28 points in one quarter. It didn't score any points in any other quarter throughout the rest of the game. So full credit to James Madison. They brought a good amount of people. It's probably some of the most amount of other teams' colors I've seen in Boone in a long time. They seemed to be pleasant to deal with. I didn't run into any issues myself. Hopefully most of them had pleasant experiences. They performed well on the field. Even when they were struggling to put points on the board, they were still moving the ball pretty well. It looks like their field goal kicker is struggling a little bit at this point in the season. I think he missed 2 on Saturday. And full credit. I mean, you're down 28-3 at one point. You could pack it up. It looks like App State kind of packed it up. I don't know if you pinpoint one thing that really could change that outcome of that game tremendously. App State's just got to be better on the line of scrimmage to open up the game for their running backs, give quarterback better protection, and they didn't do that at all in the second half. They really didn't open up the running game at all in the first half either. James Madison held them in check for the running game, which was a bigger surprise to me. I knew App would have decent success through the air, and I knew James Madison would certainly have success through the air. I was surprised that they did shut down Thornton pretty well. He was held, I think he had 1 reception actually in the game total, but they found the other guys they needed to, and all credit to them. They played a great game overall, never gave up, and ended up taking that one in the end. Tough loss for App State fans, but James Madison has a lot to look forward to in this new Sunbelt and moving up, and they've got the guys and positions to do it. The portal has changed that type of move up tremendously, so that's a really good point for them to know that they've found the guys that they had already on the roster, and they're pairing them up with other guys that are working just as hard and continuing what they've done at the 1AA level here in 1A football, FBS football. After that, we'll jump into the Georgia State-Ball State game. I had that one predicted as Georgia State 48, Ball State 21. Georgia Southern. Wow. Everyone's going to get mad about that one. Georgia Southern ended up winning that game 34-23. So Ball State scored about as many points as I had predicted, and Georgia Southern did pretty well. Didn't quite put quite as much up on the board as I thought they would, but I mean, they did a great job. The only thing that I was probably surprised with was the run game didn't really get opened up as much as it could have been or has been in the past. None of the running backs had more than 70 yards, but they spread the ball out for the running backs, so they did a good job there. And Van Treese had a great game, 310 total yards, 2 touchdowns, so a tremendous job there. And they found their receivers, right? So they're just looking good. Ball State, 1-3 overall after that game. We knew they wouldn't be a huge challenge, but they do have an offense over there at Ball State. So their quarterback actually threw for more yardage than Van Treese did for Southern. But it's exactly the type of game Southern needs to get back on to where they were at, scoring points and beating somebody by outscoring them and holding them up defensively enough to be successful there. Then we'll jump into the Arkansas State and Old Dominion game. This one surprised me. I had Arkansas State taking this one by 10, 34-24. It was still a close game. but it was even closer than I thought it might be. ODU actually ended up taking this one 29-26. Every time I talk about ODU's defense and maybe not doing enough offensively, they seem to prove me wrong. So if you don't like what I'm saying, ODU fans, it seems to still work out for you in the end. So I wouldn't be too upset about it. Just have me continue to doubt you for the rest of the year, and you'll probably end up with a pretty good record. Blackman struggled here in this one. He 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but he also fumbled the ball away once. Wasn't the greatest with completions percentage. Wolf really stepped this one up. His completion percentage wasn't all that much better than Blackman's, to be honest, but 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, just a very clean game by him overall. Neither of these teams, I guess going back to my prediction, I thought Arkansas State would establish the run here, and that's what would prove to be the difference if they could control the clock and control the ball longer. They couldn't do that, which is interesting because ODU doesn't seem to have been able to do that either. No running back on either team ran for more than 46 yards, shockingly enough. These are all passing offenses, and that's what they lean on. Foreman for Arkansas State had the big game for them, over 100 yards and a touchdown. And then, of course, as if there was any doubt, Jennings comes through again for Old Dominion, 140 yards and a touchdown with a long catch of 77. So that's going to be a huge difference maker if they continue getting him the ball. And Kuntz actually, not even 50 yards for him on the day, only 3 catches, but he did come up with a touchdown. Obviously, he's that tight end, that size that you want to hit when you're getting towards that red zone area. So that's where he's come into play and been very successful as far as that is concerned. Then we'll jump into the Southern Miss Tulane game. This one shocked me, guys. I had this one as a Tulane win 27-10 over Southern Miss before this started. But Southern Miss comes away with the bell. I honestly didn't know this was such a big rivalry, not having any real interest or reason to have interest in Tulane and Southern Miss previously. But, man, watching this game back was fun. Southern Miss really impressed me on both sides of the ball, really. This Tulane team had just beaten Kansas State up in Kansas. And, you know, maybe their other wins weren't so great looking, but when you beat a team that's ranked on the road, that's never easy to do. And they had done that, come down. They were 3-0 on the year. Everyone pretty much thought Tulane was going to take this one. Southern Miss had a decent game with Miami, and we know where Miami stands now after that Middle Tennessee game, but very impressed when I'm watching back this game with how that happened. Wilkie is definitely the quarterback they need to just stick with, the quarterback of the future. Gore really, surprisingly, did not have much of a great game. Only 44 yards. That Tulane defense is pretty good, but they really opened up that pass game. And obviously Brownlee's their go-to guy, but Caston had the big game, 91 yards and 1 touchdown. He looked great throughout the game. In fact, I think it was maybe even his first catch. He kind of bobbles it and then brings it in. So he started off like a rough look, but then took over the game completely and was certainly a reason to be named the player of the game there. So, yeah, I'm starting to come around on Southern Miss. Again, that transfer portal is really working out for some of these teams, which is great, especially when we're playing games out of conference. You know, in conference, you don't want your team to lose, but, man, when we're going up against anybody out of conference, I'm always going for that Sun Belt team. So great, awesome victory there by Southern Miss over Tulane, and in a big rivalry for them down there. After that, we'll jump into the Texas State Houston Baptist / Houston Christian game. I had this game as Texas State 31, Houston Christian 17. It ends up being Texas State 34, Houston Christian 0. So a little better than I had thought, but about the same as far as domination is concerned. This is a lower level team going up against, one of the teams that's in Texas State that's still in a rebuild, but has been having some success even against some of these bigger opponents that they've played. So Hatcher went off for 362 and 4 touchdowns total. They're starting to get that running game going. Again, this is a lesser defense they're facing, but to get their running back some more yardage and pound that rock with the O-line having a little more success is a good thing to see. Hatcher doesn't seem to be any kind of running quarterback, as he's listed as negative 28 yards on the game. So he's not a runner. You don't want him running the ball, but as long as they can get that O-line established and get the ball to Perry, I think they're going to be fine. They obviously keep getting the ball to Hawkins, who had a touchdown in this one, but was actually outpaced by both Banks and Barbie. Barbie had just a great game, 112 yards, 1 touchdown total. And defensively, you're coming away with 4 sacks, 7 for loss. So, defensively looking good. Texas State is kind of getting back into a groove there right before they start conference play. So that's good for them. Great to see them take care of business against a lesser opponent there. Then we'll jump into the Troy and Marshall game. I had this one as Marshall 30, Troy 17, and boy, was I ever wrong. I thought Marshall would take that loss to Bowling Green hard, come back, reestablish what they had done against Notre Dame, come out and play Troy really well. Now, it doesn't surprise me where Troy ended up. I had them as 17 points total. They end up scoring 16 points and taking this one 16-7 over Marshall. But I will tell you that this game was surprising. If they'd switched uniforms, it wouldn't have shocked me. I guess it's not totally shocking overall. Like I said, Troy deserved everything that they got there at Appalachian State, except for the final score, because they dominated the game and they were where they wanted to be right there at the end. Maybe some questionable coaching got them to be in that position that ended up not being in their favor in the end. But Gunnar Watson's coming on, 321, no touchdowns, surprisingly, and he did have a pick in that game, but they're just really good at spreading the ball around. There's not one go-to receiver each and every game. They've got different guys stepping up in those roles. Johnson and Barber are 2 of the better ones, I would say, and both went over 100 yards in this game. Vidal didn't have a great game, 34 yards total, but Billingsley really stepped it up, 85 total yards. Laborn still had a great game. He's been Marshall's go-to back with their starter being out, and he just continues to come up large for them. So that's great to see for them. It's just as far as quarterback play goes, they weren't having much success. Neither Columbia nor Fancher could really get much going. Fancher, as we've seen previously, has been brought in to run the ball more and get that type of the game going, and even that really wasn't working for them. They didn't have any let's say this. Besides Laborn, they didn't have a single running back over 10 yards a carry, and they didn't have a single wide receiver with over 40 yards total. Not a carry, I'm sorry. Total yards for the game, they didn't have anybody with over 10 yards for the running back, and they didn't have anybody over 40 yards for a wide receiver. So that's surprising there with what Marshall has done early on in the season. They had a little trouble holding on to the ball as well. Just a struggle of a game for Marshall. The turning point when you have a tough game is it goes one of 2 ways, right? You either turn it around, you fix your mistakes, you come out hotter and better overall, and then you've got the opposite side of that, which is maybe some frustration in the background, getting on each other too much in the locker room. I don't know how much of that's going on, but you could bet that there's probably something along those lines with how this game went, and hopefully this struggle doesn't continue for Marshall fans because they had so much promise coming into the season, and now would they sit at 2-2 with already having 1 conference loss. After that, Louisiana Tech, who is not in our conference, and South Alabama matched up. I called this one for South Alabama 38-24. They ended up taking it 38-14, so even a little bit better. I kind of got lucky on the score for USA there. But, again, South Alabama's kind of the team that a lot of people thought they'd be, the one that would step up over there in the West. Bradley's looking good. They've got a stable of running backs, I'd say. I mean, none of them are head and shoulders above the rest, but they do spread it out and have success there overall. And wide receivers, Lacey's kind of their standout guy. I'd say Wayne's probably their most standout guy, but Lacey's getting up there now too, and they're spreading the ball out there. They had no more than 3 catches per wide receiver, so they had about 9 of them on the stat sheet. So really good job of spreading the ball around offensively there. Defensively, they had a lot of success in this one with 4 sacks, 9 for loss there. They had interceptions in this game as well. Banks came away with 2 of them, and 1 of them for a touchdown. So that's a big time turning point to help them. They had this one in control pretty much by halftime. I'd say it wasn't really within doubt, and certainly by the end of the third quarter, it was over. So USA continues to impress. Should have come away with that victory over UCLA, but they take care of business against Louisiana Tech team, and I'm sure a lot of the fans in the conference are happy to see that, because Louisiana Tech usually thinks of themselves pretty highly. And then my highlight of the night, I knew it was going to be a good one coming in, and it ended up being a great game overall too. Louisiana versus Monroe, UL Monroe. This is, like we said before, this is a game that, even if one of the teams is great and one of them's not great, it's always a close matchup. It's similar to the App State Georgia Southern. It doesn't matter if a team's ranked or not ranked, and barely has any wins versus a team that's almost undefeated. It doesn't matter. These are the types of games where that stuff just does not matter. The crowd seemed to get into it finally more towards the end. They were pretty quiet mostly throughout the game, at least on the ESPN Plus coverage. It's not always the best, so we have to say that just to make it, I don't want to diminish anything, but that the fans were trying to accomplish there. But Louisiana Cajuns just continue to struggle there. Again, running backs couldn't really get a whole lot going throughout the game. Passing game was okay. Actually, I think the passing game was okay, but Monroe just really came away with the plays when they needed them most. Rogers, as the quarterback for Monroe, didn't even throw a touchdown pass all day. They scored the 3 touchdowns that they got all on the ground. But no, that was to say Howell had a massive catch to go, I think. 89 yards. I was going to say 90 plus, but 89 yards. And so he had 124 yards, but most of those came on 1 catch. And the running game was just enough down there in the red zone to get it done, because they were just in there close enough to put the ball in the end zone. So it wasn't the greatest game of all time. Most of us in the Sun Belt know that you've got to score more than 21 points to win games a lot of times. And, it didn't need to happen in this one, which was a little bit surprising. But this is one of those hard-fought games. Again, anything can happen. You could have a 3-0 final in a game like this. It's not going to be shocking. You could also have a shootout of 61 to 63 or something. Nothing is crazy and out of the ordinary when these two teams match up, and it's always fun to see that. It was a great way to finish the night and watch that one happen. Monroe fans, I'm sure, are happy that the first time they've beat the Cajuns in quite a while. I think 2010 is what they said on the broadcast. So great job from Monroe. Or maybe they've turned a corner. Maybe the West isn't owned by the Cajuns this year. I didn't think it would be. I thought Troy would be the team to step up. Maybe they will be. We'll see. Stick with me. We're going to go into week 5 preview by later in the week, and thanks for listening.
Sunbelt Syndicate.